Welcome to Diaries of a Data Scientist, our podcast in which we share about what's important to break into data science, provide valuable insights also for senior data scientists, and invite interesting guests from different data science areas. We're 𝐲𝐨𝐿 and Kate. We're both data scientists and mentors working in industry, and we are sharing here our thoughts and experiences. Let's go. Hi, and welcome back to Diaries of a Data Scientist. This is episode 28, and it's actually a part 2 episode for this very cool and also very relevant topic of artificial general intelligence, but mostly what has been happening in these crazy last weeks and months. So already since we've just started 2025, a lot has happened in the AI world. So we're going to cross all of the topics off that list today. We're going to talk about Stargate. We're going to talk about what are the recently announced investments made by the European Union. We're going to talk about DeepSeek versus OpenAI, and overall, where is this global fight for dominance in the AI world ending? So a lot of ground to cover today. Kate, are we prepared?
Very much hope so. As 𝐲𝐿 already mentioned, we're going to continue today's episode talking about pretty much the AGI and why, and ASI specifically also, and why this created all of this fuss, and why we have been sort of bombarded in the BBC News, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And that is why it is really important to understand the deal between AGI and ASI. And that is why definitely we offer you and encourage you, if you haven't yet listened to the first one, please go ahead and do so, because right now we're going to start with the 21st January of 2025 and what pretty much have been announced or started in that day.
Listeners and viewers who are interested to follow and keep up with what's happening in AI might remember that on the 21st January, Project Stargate in the US has been announced by the President of the United States at that point. And basically, Project Stargate is a multi-company initiative which will fund a total of 500 billion US dollars. It's led by multiple US tech giants, but also, for example, SoftBank. So it's including OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, and MGX. Very interestingly, Elon Musk's company was not involved. So I can imagine he might not be 100% amused of that, knowing how much he is also, advancing and all of the things he's been doing and his recent connections with the US government there, but never mind. So Project Stargate has been announced. So what were some of the voices that you heard, Kate, about Project Stargate?
This is something that it would remind me about two different news. That first one, that people or articles would go ahead and catch up with the news saying that, oh, we're going to have the background for AGI. Somebody will even go ahead a little bit one step further and saying, this is something that we can say as ASI is going to be led by. But also really interestingly, that he just means that Elon Musk was not part of that. And I think we all know right now why that was probably the reason, because a couple of days ago, he was trying to buy OpenAI, offering $97 billion. And that offer was refused. And if I'm not mistaken about the dates, the offer is still on till, I guess, May 10th of May 2025. So we are in the first row of a huge AI theater and a huge AI world competition right now. And what is also really interestingly, that if you will guys go ahead right now and Google Stargate Project, or you will go to ChatGPT Googling this Stargate Project, the ChatGPT will give you the actual secret US Army unit that was established in 1977. And it will give you the history of what that was about and what they were trying to do in there. So I guess, having these kind of names is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I mean, there's only a very low probability that this name is a, coincidence. It's obviously taken deliberately. And just to, go a little bit more details. Basically, Project Stargate aims to very much focus on building extensive AI infrastructure across different hubs in the United States, multiple data centers to really also boost and bolster AI development and make sure that US remains in the first position in the leadership of the AI world. And this is so interesting because honestly, here in Europe, I mean, everyone was anyway already in a little bit of a stir because of that, change in US government and president and so on. And then with this announcement of Stargate, I think many of the reactions really were like shocked by the number of 500 billion. It's massive investments. And then also, I think in the second spot, especially here in Europe, this is maybe the final straw that might lead to Europe really falling behind in the AI development, right? Because some people might say this race was already lost 10 years ago or 15 years ago, seeing that there was not enough investments done. At least that's the opinion of some of the voices here in Europe specifically, and many really took this as a opportunity to criticize that Europe should do more funding as well, that we should work better together as the European Union, and to not, fall even more behind. So, I mean, you can always see it as a positive in that sense as well, that it was creating a lot of, say, stir up and media and press announcements and awareness. I wouldn't even say negative, right? Because at least this is a chance to shed awareness on, we need to do something in Europe, and only that will bring you forward.
And I also remember that I was reading different articles, specifically, honestly, on LinkedIn that would criticize or ask critical questions regarding the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act, about the Digital Markets Act, but we will definitely go back to this point a little bit later. So yeah, this is something that we can see how the market has been a little bit shaked after 21st of January announcement.
So at that point, we were 3 weeks into the new year, right? Imagine that, 3 weeks into the new year. To be fair, there were also definitely some voices saying only because it's announced, it's not realized, right? I mean, you first have to really realize that massive investments and so on. But very interestingly, very shortly after, massive media announcements came from the other side of the world.
Side of the globe, yes. And we can right now talk about one of the most hyped, one of the most downloaded app.
Even here in Germany?
Even here in Germany, which is called DeepSeek R1, that was developed by AI scientists in China. And right now we're talking about a timeline starting from 20 of January till 27th of January. So guys, as you see, we're going to, take your hand and go through different days and different weeks. So pretty much what you will know about this company is that it is a startup that was found in 2023. But also, if you will just Google, or if you will go to Wikipedia, for example, will tell you that this company was found in 2018. We also know that this company has strong ties to the Chinese hedge fund that is called High Flyer, and they have managed to have up to maximum of $20 billion for the past years.
They were actually a fintech startup, right? So I think they were mostly active in the financial market. So that is very interesting.
But also, one of their purposes was to establish the artificial general intelligence self-developed models. And here is again, guys, if you haven't watched the part 1, you need to understand up until now what is that AGI in this sense means. But I had a feeling that a lot of people, actually myself, because it just bombarded the market so impressively that everyone started just talking about that, started going through the articles. And Yasmin, do you remember, Katie, have you heard about this? That was the pretty chaotic times at that days. Actually, that's not their first developed model. And again, if you will just go to internet pages, you will see that their first model was released on November 2nd, 2023, and that was called DeepSeek R1, and where pretty much the architecture was as Llama. And then throughout the times, they would put out different models with different architectures, maybe with different reasoning. And then in December 2024, they released DeepSeek V3 model, while in January 20, they would announce the launch of DeepSeek R1 that was actually built upon DeepSeek V3 model.
Maybe to quickly comment, right? Because you said the architectures of the first round about 2 model versions was quite similar to Llama, just for anyone who's still trying to catch up, right? So Llama is one of the models which was published by Meta, the company behind Facebook, and which became super popular in the research field and in the kind of, say, open source AI community, because we have weights available for different Llama versions. So this was really advancing also the progress in this kind of open source generative AI community. So I don't have the exact dates of Llama in my head, but I think Llama came before. So quite interesting to see that they started out from a similar architecture. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, yeah. But again, this is just the information that is taken from
the free web. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So we can always say that, okay, maybe later we will see something else that actually was behind that.
Okay, so why is DeepSeek, why was there such a fuss about it? So what was all of that media attention about? Because honestly, every day new models are being thrown onto the market. So what was all of the fuss about?
So let's just get a little bit into the tough part. That fuss was created due to the cost efficiency of the model to be trained. And the scientists behind the company, they calculated approximately the costs if you will train this model on the clouds, having, I guess, the number of GPUs equals to 2048, that it will take you up to $5 million in order to train the DeepSeek R1 model. And for comparison, if you will go to Llama, it was announced that it will be $60 million to train that model. Or for example,
have to wait.
Yeah, definitely. Or for example, if you will take the OpenAI models, it was about or even over $100 million in order to train that. That was pretty much the cost efficiency. And honestly, nobody really knows how they managed to do that, how they managed to put out this kind of architecture, which kind of data they use in order to create this efficiency.
Yeah, so everyone was blown away. Like you get, and I mean, it was not just the low cost, right? Because you can have a shitty model with low cost. I think it was the mixture of having amazing results, which could absolutely match, for example, the major models from OpenAI, but at the same time having this at least like apparently low cost that as cited by the owners of that startup. So I feel like everyone was throwing a bombastic side eye to Sam Altman and like, why can you not manage to, do the same for less cost?
What's the trick?
And just imagine it. This happening after just Project Stargate has been announced and everyone has been celebrating themselves for, we get a $500 billion investment. And then this Chinese startup company, which no matter if it's there for 2 or 5 years, right? It's a very young company, a very young founder.
Yes.
Just puts out this like really great model, at least performance-wise, for like just a split of the costs.
Yeah. And
perfect
for
timing.
example, it is important also to note in here and to say that right now on the market, we have recently a new announced model from OpenAI, which is O3 mini model. And the DeepSeek R1 model was compared regarding the performance with the OpenAI O1 model at that times.
And if I have the correct understanding, the O3 mini model, right? This is the one which really excels, or let's say, which made huge progress in the area of better reasoning of these models, right? So it's not your standard, like immediately text generation
Yes.
LLM. I've been trying it, and you can basically see how O3 mini will then say, okay, this was the question. I'm trying to think about it, and then you see like some text not being fully written out, and also making some changes.
Yeah.
So it feels almost like that model is, having a way more active thought process and reasoning before it gives you a definitive answer. And this can take from, I don't know, 3 to 30 seconds, or sometimes even more, to give you a definitive answer. And the model from DeepSeek basically is also strong in reasoning, right? And I think that was what was really kind of why it got so much attention from the people.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And that means after that, the markets were taking a dip, right?
Definitely. So we can talk about two things here. The first one, I remember, maybe not on the very same day, but throughout this week, when the DeepSeek model, like DeepSeek R1, get more famous, like more ripped the market apart. A lot of people were trying. Even the CEO of OpenAI was asked publicly what he thinks of that. What are you going to do with this, and etc. If I'm not mistaken, he even mentioned that he would love to see the collaboration waves for these companies. This is the maybe first note. But the second one, let's not forget about the cost efficiency, because yes, the market got blown up with these numbers, but it is important to understand and hear that this is not the one and the final number. Maybe you can a little bit get us into the loop of the costs in this situation.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I can fully imagine, like, the kind of anxious shareholders, especially of Nvidia, being like, why do we even put out such strong and massive GPUs if, in the end, maybe you can do it with even some weaker, you just have to connect and have a better architecture and so on. You can do with less cost. So it was, I think, especially Nvidia's share price took a quite a hit because exactly of that, right? And so that was quite interesting, but you could see also some follow-up reactions from the rest of the market. I read even an estimate which said that it was almost destroying 1 trillion of market capitalization after
so it was about, I guess, 17% drop, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. And so imagine almost 1 trillion of US dollars. It's massive dip. And I think, as you said, right, it's very easy to put out this number of around about $5 million of costs. But even if that is maybe an accurate number for just the training cost, if you were to do it on like some of the most common remote architectures or remote computational infrastructures, there is so much more that actually goes into a model development, right? I mean, all of the research, all of the concepts and planning to build such a model, and all of the trial and failure that has been going, all of the developments of prior versions until you find something which then is good enough, like R1, to really get out, and paying all of, say, the experts behind it. So, I mean, it really is not, this is not a like a total estimation of what this of the cost. And I think it's a simplified. It might still be a substantial, like, in comparison, substantial, a cheaper way. And this actually also has some of the reasons in the architecture. So what we can say so far is basically that that what you also see during inference, that only a smaller part of the number of parameters is being activated. So I think from the roundabout 670 billion parameters that the model has, only 37 billion parameters are being active, basically. And that is because it follows a mixture of experts model architecture, meaning you could, in a simplified version, you have some sub models which are all experts in specific areas, and the overall model has learned over time which of the experts, the smaller expert models, to activate and to get the answer from. And this is a very smart architecture. It's not like this hasn't been around, right? This is a very known approach in deep learning and has been around for quite some time. So this is one thing that's quite interesting.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one thing I also read, that they found some good ways to compress. Also, for example, we're able to use a not as much exact floating numbers by making smart mathematical compressions and decompressions. So they were able to basically use up less space while still having exact mathematical calculations. And all of that accounted also to being a very efficient architecture in that. So that is all true, but also don't believe that it would only take $5 million to replicate something like that.
Definitely. And you just mentioned and touched a pretty interesting thing, which is data. And we also can see from a lot of different sources, LinkedIn as well, that DeepSeek R1 model is the open source. And here we might have a little bit of the different, let's say, perspective to mention that this is the open source under the MIT license, right? Usually the open source is like a Linux software that you can just download it on your PC or USB card, and that what you're doing is pretty much the code is open, which is not happening with DeepSeek R1, because if you will go to GitHub, you will not be able to find the code source in there.
The code to train the models, right? I mean, you can download the models, at least different, like smaller versions, but not the code. Yes. And what about the data?
The same with the data. So we don't know on which data this model has been trained. And I guess that is really important to note in here. So for me, it is open source under certain limitations. But if you're just a developer and you want to understand what is happening in there, how they manage to do that, you won't be able to see that, unfortunately, as well as the data set.
This is all, I think, facts, as you said, right? That's where, again, there is definitely some different opinions about what open source in the generative AI field really means. We also have some great episodes on this topic, so feel free to check them out. Open source generative AI. I feel that most of the people would still, in the end, compare DeepSeek to OpenAI, right? That was basically the most popular comparison that you saw. And in comparison to OpenAI, which actually started out as a non-profit at some point and used to also be way more open with their technological advances, which they fairly soon again then threw out the window. What people see in the end is that the MIT license is a very permissive license, right? Which also lets you use it for commercial applications. You can do full alterations and even commercialize that software. So it's one of the more permissive licenses in the open source field. And I think that's what people see in the end. Yes, the code to get to that result is not there. Yes, the data is not there, which is a quite big hit. But in the end, companies could download versions of that model, could install it, could run it on their own, on their own infrastructure and make alterations as they see fit. And I think that is in the end what will stick in the kind of public perception. If that's right or not, but I think that's how people perceive it.
Yeah, and I guess that is why also we're mentioning that, since it's kind of important to understand these differences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and guys, we do have a crazy idea with 𝐲𝐬𝐬 to go ahead with a very specific episode and tell you pretty much all of the models that we have so far, their different architectures, different approaches, how they're building that. So please, if you would love to have something like that and go into really dirty talks in here about a technical part, that we will be really happy to create this one for you.
You would make 2 data scientists quite happy.
Oh my God, yes.
Great. But to be fair, right? And we should, Kate, you and me, we need to give the full picture. There was also some backlash on DeepSeek, which mostly revolved around the topic of data protection.
Yes.
I think that people were way faster to pick on the topic of data protection because it's a Chinese model of their close relationship or like affiliation also with the Chinese government, right? So people were really fast to pinpoint, okay, the data protection issues. I also read a recent article that, I mean, it's not just the data that you type in your prompt, but that the application, so the app, if you download it on your mobile, which many people did, as mentioned earlier, it's apparently one of the most used AI applications in Germany, for example, right now, even though it hasn't been around and people haven't been aware before basically end of January this year, that it also does, for example, record how fast and the style of your typing in the app could build profiles. So it does user profiling, which is not unheard of, obviously, right? But in connection to maybe then the prompts that you would provide or the data that you upload as PDFs or whatever, right? You could build a quite extensive profile. Having said that, obviously, many people then also commented on OpenAI models being US models, and US also not being known for having the strongest data protection, at least in comparison to the European Union, right? And the GDPR.
Yes.
So I think in the end, you should always read the terms of use, be very
Not just
aware
agree
of
to
what
that,
you do.
right?
Exactly. Be very aware of what you're doing with your data. What we've seen is, I believe Italy, for example, decided to forbid that application, for example, from their like app stores and so on, because of data protection. So
Yes, and I've heard that Ireland and France are right now checking.
evaluating. So that might also be something upcoming here in Germany. Right now, the application is still available. If you want to check it out, again, be mindful of what you do with your data.
And let's go right now to one step ahead in the time, and we will go to the 31st of January, which is really interesting what is happening right now, right? Because they will announce the OpenAI O3 mini model in here. And also a couple of days later, which will be on the 2nd of February, they will announce the deep research, which is, as of now, it is only available and accessible to the people with the Pro subscription. And the Plus teams, it will be stated later. So just
it's called
pretty much
OpenAI Deep Research, right? So it's like
deep
more
research.
of a feature of them. So
Definitely.
it's like
So
web
pretty much
search or
pretty much what they said, and I'm going just to read this, reference that is on their website, is that it accomplished in 10 minutes of what a person will take many hours, and is powered by the version of the upcoming O3 model that is optimized for web browsing, data analysis, doing reasoning in search, interpret, and analyze massive amount of data, text, PDFs. And they even do have the demo version, let's say like the video, how you should interact with this new feature that will be able to create a report for you. Like, for example, if, as I imagine, as mentioned, right, we haven't yet tested that out because we don't have the Pro subscription, unfortunately, maybe in this sense.
You mean like the $200 one?
$200 one, right? Yes. This is definitely
Sponsor
different.
us.
So yes, please, someone to test it out for you. Yeah, so pretty much they would have on the website the way how you should interact with this new feature, and a demo version of what it will prompt, what it will write in there, in the way how you should write in there, and what you will get as an output after this. So I'm very much honestly interested what is it going to be for a couple of next months, and I'm really eager to try that out for.
Yeah, and that's quite a statement, right? It accomplishes in tens of minutes what would take a human many hours. Let that sink in. It's quite a statement to make.
Yes.
It's gonna be very interesting, and seeing that with combined reasoning capabilities, right? Not just like doing this deep research, but then like combining that with complex and advanced reasoning, gonna be quite interesting. But honestly, like having you explain that, there was one point I feel I missed when I talked about a backlash for DeepSeek next to the data protection that many experts pointed out very quickly. And there were also accusations of censorship, that when you basically prompted and wanted to know something some of the specific events also in Chinese history or some of the controversial topics, regarding, for example, working and human rights conditions. You were seeing some examples where the model started to type and then rolled back and said something like, let's not talk about it, or let's talk about something else. So there were some accusations in the area of censorship, which is something also I think the rest of the world does not take lightly. On the other hand, I mean, you always have to keep in mind that these kind of models are very much relying on the kind of data that they're being fed with. And there's a lot of time after that going into the configuration and the alignment of the model. And that is always, to some part, a subjective process. And kind of the developers or the company can imbue to some extent, or, their own values and what they want to see reflected, right? So I would not go as far as saying like all of the other models are also doing censorship, right? But it's always like a subjective kind of truth, even though it does feel more objective because it's like an AI model, right? Keep in mind that these things are being trained by massive amounts of data, but still also by human engineers, and they go through certain steps in the training, which we'll see hopefully in the detail episode, which also rely on human feedback.
I love that you have just touched that, because this is something that I've been, trying to sell to the business people that are like, we need to find just one AI engineer or one data scientist to create a model, to deploy that, and etc. Because if you want to avoid the bias at a maximum likelihood in this sense, that you should never just have one person who is going to develop the model, because then the model is going just to be duplicating this person's specific brain's values, bias, and etc. So that is why it's really, really important that you have just mentioned.
Yeah. And that's why also, I mean, that is something that the 𝐢𝐴I Act is lining out actually with the human in the loop approach, and kind of also enforcing to some level, or forcing to have a more, say, well-defined approach to not just consuming the models, or how maybe how the process will look like to integrate such AI tools as part of the work, but also when doing developments to have maybe diverse human feedback, make sure that you get diverse perspectives in, for example, right? It's a quite important topic. Okay, so that was deep research. So let's see where I'm pretty sure that the AI world is keeping us on our toes also in the next upcoming weeks and months. What was next?
What was next? Let's talk about that. That was a couple of days ago, actually. That was also a little bit bombarded the market for me in the very positive way. So the next date in our timeline was marked at 11th of February on the AI Summit in France and Paris, where we got a pretty cool news of the launch of the AI Champions program in Europe that will receive the funding up to 200 billion euros or dollars. Euros?
Euros.
Yes.
We're in Europe.
Well, I wanted to check just in case in that, because I'm totally messed up with all of these numbers, honestly. Yeah. So what I can tell you definitely is that the initiative led by investment firm General Catalyst, and they have already secured commitments from over 60 major companies like Airbus, Siemens, Volkswagen, Philips, Infineon, Mistral AI, and etc. So pretty much, as far as I understand, they're planning to have these investments not from the government, but also from the business private sectors. So, and I think that was a pretty interesting conversation, and going throughout the days, as you can see, right, it's massive, and I have never seen this kind of announcement and also momentum and competition on the AI market, because that was also a blow up the entire internet if you happen to be on that day in there.
And specifically, I mean, this is so interesting with the timeline, because they might have planned that for months or even years. I guess so, right? Because I don't see how you pull off such a, like, commitments from almost 60 companies in just like, I don't know, 2.5 weeks or so. No, but still the timeline is pretty interesting. Many people, if could see it as almost a full reaction to what the US announced with Project Stargate. I mean, we're talking about 200 billion euros, not 500 billion US dollars. But still, for Europe, that's a massive investment. And what I really love is, and that's something I think that is also the opinion of many experts. I mean, we have certain strengths in Europe as well, right? I feel, especially also here in Germany, we're pretty quick on being very critical and being very, bashing our own technology inventions and so on, and making ourselves maybe smaller than we are. And I feel that this was also said, right, that there should be a strong focus of that investments on building trustworthy AI, building like a robust AI infrastructure, and a strong objective towards also in the industrial sector, mission critical applications, but really also focusing on a open and collaborative development, and to really, like it was said, I think by Ms. von der Leyen, to make Europe an AI continent. Also quite a bold statement. Yeah, but you have to set high goals for yourself, so that's good. Yeah, but playing to our strengths, building something which is maybe truly open and trustworthy AI. Yes. I mean, that would connect at least to the GDPR pretty well.
Definitely. And also on the line, so if you will just look at the AI investments that were having the news here and there, firstly, definitely the Stargate project. Then right now we do have European artificial intelligence champions with the 200 billions of euros investments. And that what we can also see from the different news is that France unveils about 109 billion AI investments plans. The next news that you could also heard or seen is that Canada is announcing also up to 20 billion euros to invest in AI, as well as, for example, the United Arab Emirates. They would also invest from 30 to 50 billion euros to build a huge data center in their country. So
interesting. So even more like entities following up.
Definitely, and it feels like pretty interesting. I don't want to call it AI competition, even though that probably it is, but I'm very much happy as a technical person to see that the world has been a little bit like shaked. We do have right now a little bit different maybe perspectives, goals, realities in the future. And this is something that people strongly understand that we need to invest, we need to build, we need to cooperate, collaborate, even perhaps not within the one country with the companies, but maybe within one continent, or as we've touched upon on the first part, as a like globally as a planet, in order to create this entire infrastructure, which will be really amazing.
And also just think about what this again means for the job and talent market in that area, right? I mean, they want to build up AI factories and even gigafactories, at least have kind of 12 also AI hubs across Europe. And I mean, this is also very good news for the talent market here in Europe, and will also maybe further draw talent from outside of Europe. So there might be some quite interesting opportunities in the next couple of years in that area.
Yes, and I'm honestly very much happy to be on the front line from the corporate and from the academia part, just to see how this is happening.
Such an interesting time to be alive, honestly. I mean, there's now, especially like when also DeepSeek was announced, and this combination of, say, high performance, lower costs, many people compared it to, this is not a breakthrough. This will lead us to artificial general intelligence. This will lead us to artificial super intelligence, right? I think then there are even some voices who say AGI is going to be reached by 2025. I'm not going to comment on that, as mentioned very clear in our part 1. Yeah, but I think it's really such an interesting time to be alive. And I think every kind of generation has their package to carry. Yeah, and the way to carry. But at least in the AI field, I think it's really interesting time to be alive, and also the right time to shape that future, really, and do something in that field. Yeah, it's not like we're just also bystanders. So be active. Think about how you can use AI in your day-to-day, and don't just let it happen to you. Be part of it.
what I wanted to mention is that I don't know how that for you, Smith, or for our listeners and viewers, but for the past 2.5 weeks, what I was doing, I would just call almost every single day to my boyfriend saying, "Have you heard what is happening? Do you see that? What are your thoughts on that?" And we would every single day almost, we would just sit for 1 hour at least just discussing like all of this topic. And we like, sometimes you have cats as a topic when you're talking with your partners, but that was definitely filled with a lot of AI and like recent news. That's insane.
Now I have the meme from Jennifer Lawrence in my mind where she's like,
Which
"What do you mean? What do you mean?" And like just sitting there and trying to cope and trying to understand all of the things that are happening. I think we need to also comment again, seeing that major investments made in Europe, which is a great thing. There has also been a lot of, say, criticism around the EU AI Act and the AI regulation, right? We have seen that. I think it's all fair and good to wanting to make sure that AI is, being applied for good, that you do it in a way that is respecting the citizens' data and data protection overall. But there definitely have been reactions to that. What we've seen is that multiple companies, among them Apple, Google, and Meta, have, for example, either launched features only with like quite some delay, or even decided to not launch their newest AI features in Europe. So just to give an example, right? Meta introduced some AI assistants in the US, in Australia, in Brazil, where Kate is currently being located at still,
Yeah.
but has not launched them in the EU, citing as reasoning regulatory challenges. So we do see there are definitely there are reactions to the EU AI Act, and also with it having come into force recently. I mean, you do see that companies really now need to think about it, and especially like smaller companies, they might not have the resources or the expertise to do it for themselves, so they again need to buy in a service to do it. I
Yeah.
mean, it does unarguably create more bureaucracy, which is something that I think many people would say that is not something that we were lacking in the EU. So that is a quite interesting now how this will behave and work together with this AI championship and AI champions here in Europe.
Yeah, and I guess if I'm not mistaken, a couple of days ago, I also saw a post from 𝐞𝐯𝐞𝐲𝐝. I hope we all know who she is.
Decision scientist of Google.
Oh, Google, yes. And this is exactly what she wrote in a couple of sentences, that she would highlight the European Union AI Act, asking, okay, what are you going to do right now, having all of those investments, all of these developments on the line? Because as you said, Rismin, that some of the features the companies were not able to release to the market in Europe due to these acts. But just to say very safely, we can definitely discuss that and talk about this topic. I would honestly prefer, as a customer and also as a developer, to have this act in order to catch up with the people and also protect them from unnecessary hurdles in the future.
Yeah, and we can see, right, OpenAI, for example, also very recently announced that they're gonna open an office, or they plan to open an office here in Germany, in Munich, which I think is that is something, right, which might be the right step into the direction of saying, okay, to be proactive, and if if there's regulation, right, you maybe need to work with that and need to find ways on how to comply and still advance with the technology. Yeah, I think it's not impossible. And I mean, we've also seen some of the of the laws being also revised or improved, or say like filled with more life over the years, right? So this is not the end of the line here with this act.
Not,
All right.
of course not.
I think we've covered the last, let's say, 6 weeks of the new year 2025.
Yes, definitely. And on that, I hope, guys, that you have right now the full understanding of what was happening for the past 2.5 weeks, because that was a crazy race for everyone in tech, all people in leadership. It might have also touched upon just the people that are got interested into the AI and Gen AI. So please let us know if you like it. Leave us a comment. Remember that we spent 20 pages in order to prepare for this one episode.
Show them.
Oh yes, I need to show that, because that is like, this is crazy what is been happening for the past 2.5 weeks. And yeah, also I can understand if you want to have more detailed version of like recent models, of their architectures, what are the differences of these models. Of course, if they are open source, that will be able to highlight that. As experts sitting around in here talking about really cool, really nerdy stuff, and we will need to have our glasses, I guess, for this kind of episode. So thank you for being with us today. That was Diaries of a Data Scientist, and see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Leave us a comment.
Bye-bye. This was Diaries of a Data Scientist by Yasmin and Kate. And if you enjoyed the episode, remember to check out our YouTube channel and our LinkedIn pages for more engaging content from the data science world. Thank you for today, and seeing you in the comments.